Otherwise, please enjoy your night. We are out.
See ya.
That's so good. I'm leaving that.
The truck finally came through.
That was amazing timing.
Like, bailed Chris out in everything.
Oh my god.
To the Endless Backlog Podcast. Hope all is well where you are. This is your host, Gagandeep Singh. Joining me today is my main man, Benjamin Minkoff.
I want a PS4.
Why do you... Oh, right. You should get a PS4.
What? You actually don't have one? What's wrong with you?
I don't have one.
Yeah.
Who's that?
Also joining us is the author of Eternal Dreams and my favorite Canadian, Christopher Compton.
So glad I have a PS4. Right, Ben?
Right. Right.
I have
Ben
good
knows.
games.
Ben knows.
I'm okay.
Yeah, Ben knows. So welcome to episode 50 of our podcast. Technically, we've had more than 50 if, like, raw numbers counted, but some of them we didn't count as actual numbered podcasts because Game of the Year or shit like that. The point is, we're officially on proper episode 50, so round of applause for Goggins. Had to edit 50 podcasts.
They say podcast life starts at 50.
Podcast life starts at 50? Probably.
I believe we use that editing term pretty loosely around here.
Editing. Whatever. Sometimes it gets edited. I don't know. Anyway, technically the audio quality is probably going to be worse than usual just because I decided to go with Call Burner for the second podcast in a row because I'm feeling extra lazy. So send all your complaints to Philip Hartmeyer. I'm sure he'll send me those complaints anyway about being like, dude, quit being a lazy bitch and do the podcast on Mumble. Which, we're going to have to do that with episode 51. But episode 50, Call Burner because I'm lazy. Anyway.
If he doesn't like it, he should have shown up for the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. If he didn't like it, he should have been here to be my voice of reason. Exactly. But instead, he was enjoying WrestleMania all weekend and just wrestling it up.
WrestleMania?
Yeah.
I remember when I was like 10 and I really wanted to go to WrestleMania because it was in Toronto and my dad said no and I cried.
Not really?
Yeah.
Damn, that would have been a hype WrestleMania to go to because of the Rock Hogan match.
Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah, shit.
Well, considering I don't really follow wrestling too closely, but considering what sounds like the contempt that WWE shows for its fans these days, I can't imagine why you'd want to go.
Honestly, WrestleMania, with the exception of maybe one part that could have been done differently, actually was pretty appealing if you're a fan of WWE. Just because, like, so the guy they hyped up, the new guy to beat Brock Lesnar.
Roman Reigns?
Yeah. The crowd turned on him. Like, turned on him. Because they look at him like John Cena 2.0, like, we don't want him. We want Daniel Bryan.
Isn't that funny when they do that? The crowd goes against,
Yeah, exactly. It happened to The Rock. Except with The Rock, they were cool and let him be a heel for a little while, and everybody was like, no, The Rock's funny. We love him now.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, what happened was there's Seth Rollins. The whole thing is Money in the Bank. You can, like, ask for a title match at any time at any given moment, right? Usually it's done after, like, a really brutal match has ended and the person's weak, so you get a cheap win. Yeah. So, throughout the whole match, you have to find a way to make Brock Lesnar look like a beast, which he does. He completely wrecks Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns takes an ass whipping and keeps coming back, so that makes him look tough. And then Seth Rollins, who widely argued that for the last 365 days has been the best in-ring performer in wrestling right now.
Wrestling.
In WWE. And they had him cash in his Money in the Bank and win the title, and the crowd went nuts. Like, the crowd was really into it. And it's like, you bailed Roman Reigns out of your own bullshit. You kept Brock Lesnar looking like a monster, because he fucking wrecked him. And he was hilarious. At one point, he's like, welcome to Suplex City, bitch. I was dying. Just dying. It was so good. So good.
Speaking of dying.
Yeah, dying. Speaking of dying. This podcast is going to be dedicated to Bloodborne. The reason why this podcast is on Call Burner is because while the last couple I've actually had the decency to have the podcast recorded a week in advance, so I have so much time to edit them. Last week we were playing way too much fucking Bloodborne to edit or actually record a podcast, so lazy
What's
route
with
it
that?
is. What's with that is that Bloodborne is fucking fantastic.
So good.
So good.
It feels like the first time, which is weird. I guess it's not weird, but it feels like going back the first time I played Demon's Souls.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
being,
It seems like a tough thing to be able to recapture.
I know it does.
I mean, it's to me, it's right up there with Demon's Souls and Dark Souls, though. Like Demon's Souls was like the thing that introduced you to these games, more or less. Dark Souls was like, okay, you changed something on me, now I have to adjust, right? Bloodborne was again that, where they changed something, and in my case, I really had to adjust. Holy shit, that's just ass whippings. Holy fuck, man, I love this game right now. I'm getting really close to finishing the game, like completing like all the optional bosses, getting ready for the secret boss, which, as anyone that's ever heard my Arkham City story of how I beat that game, I am not someone who does optional shit, usually.
How do you know you've found all the optional shit?
He goes online and looks it
Please,
up.
I looked at New York Gap after a certain point. Cause no, I got to a certain point in the game, and I'm like, I think I'm really close to the end, and I'm gonna go look at what else I can do at this point. I think that's fair.
I'll probably...
You want to beat the game before you did all the other stuff?
Yeah, because the second you beat the game, it kicks New Game Plus in, so it's not like you get to...
So then I have to do the stuff I missed, but probably harder later.
Way harder.
Yeah. Like, they're saying, they're gassing up this game's New Game Plus. That's something, like, way more demanding than Demon's Souls or Dark Souls. Apparently.
See, I'm only halfway, and I generally avoid all the things, so I probably missed this ton of stuff too, but I think Galgan's way of doing things is pretty legit. That's usually what I do. If I feel like I'm getting to the end, and I know I've missed a bunch of side stuff, then I'll go back.
I mean, whatever. We have so much stream footage of me playing that game that, like, I'm clearly playing the game blind most of the way through.
Yeah, half of it is you fighting Father G, like...
Oh my god. Yeah, what do we say? So... Yeah, speaking of which, I want to retcon on certain things. When it comes to the whole Bungie bashing thing, I get the whole the battered wife syndrome or whatever. Right? And it's like, there's nothing battered about pointing out the fact that that studio was good at multiplayer, but their single player sucked. It's not my fault people couldn't accept the fact, a reality, a truth. That's besides the point. Bloodborne is actual some goddamn battered wife syndrome, because that game has kicked my ass repeatedly, and I've come back for more. At no point has it been fun. Like, let me throw that out the window. Satisfying? Hell yeah. Gratifying? Oh my god. Was that redundant to say those last two words? Fuck yes. But I wasn't having fun getting my ass whipped. So.
Do you call it emotionally abusive?
It has, oh my god, when you get trolled in that game, when you get that guy down to the last little inch, here's the thing, like, you know the health bar is at the tail end, so you take the suicide stab, which is like, alright, fuck defense, I'm taking one stab, he's done. You take the one stab, except he's still got some health left, and then he kills you. It's like, what? What health did he have?
It's happened to me too many times to count.
Yeah, so...
It's like the magic pixel in Street Fighter, except
there's
not a player on the other end.
Exactly. But, I gotta say, it's literally satisfying for all the same reasons Demon's Souls and Dark Souls are satisfying. Demon's Souls and Dark Souls 1. Dark Souls 2, whatever. Same thing. They're all really good games, obviously.
When they're satisfying, it's satisfying for the same reason.
Yes.
Yeah, see, I don't find the games, Bloodborne anyways, to be, then again, I'm not in the later parts of the game, but the actual enemies, just like the normal enemies, I find them totally fine. I actually have fun just going through, traversing the world and killing normal enemies, but the boss is it's battered wife syndrome, like, I have problems with some of those bosses.
Yeah, it's been legit. So, Chris, you want to talk about, like, the major changes that have happened? Like what's been the shift in Bloodborne that you had to adjust to with all these hours in Demon's Souls and Dark Souls?
So I've always said Demon Souls, the Souls series itself has taught me patience in gaming, that just hacking and slashing is not the way to get things done. There's a give and take to the combat. Shield, using your shield is very important, parrying, all of those things. Point is, best offense is a good defense. That's what the Soul games have taught me, patience. Bloodborne basically kicked that out of me within the first probably 5 minutes of the game. It does not beseech you to just stand back the entire time, because one of the biggest changes is just how fast the combat is now. The original Souls games were never, some people would call them clunky, the combat, just because your character was very slow, the enemies were very slow. It was about memorizing animations and waiting for that person to be done before you went in.
Yeah, but that's more like it's deliberate. I thought.
No, yeah. I wouldn't say clunky at all. I would say deliberate. But Bloodborne is more about, it's almost like a dance. It's waiting, like the enemy will strike forward, and then you dodge to the side. You attack once, they'll come back at you. So it's much more kind of like a boxing match than just kind of you waiting for things to happen. And I think that's probably the biggest adjustment. If you're just waiting, your opportunity will not present itself as obviously as it did in the past Souls games, I find. Yeah.
That's literally been a lot of my issue, both with Father G, but a lot of the stretches in the game, like, I still play it like Dark Souls. Like, I still I still go forward at a slow pace, and then you'll end up in an area that's like, no, run. Like, run.
Yeah, you can't.
Don't think you're gonna win this through attrition. You need to just run by everything, which we'll get into that a little bit. But, the combat is, like, somehow even more entertaining, just because, like, without the shield there, right?
Yeah, that's the big part.
Like, in Demon Souls and Dark Souls, you could parry and then riposte someone, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And it was, like, this, like, mechanic that, like, if you were really good at the game, you got down packed, and it was, like, it added to the skill ceiling in the game. But if there's a knock against it, it's this. It's that nothing in Demon Souls and Dark Souls ever requires you to use it.
Yeah.
Like, realistically speaking, you can beat that game doing the simplest strategy. I mean, it's
like, I'd always like to get, like, a good shield and a spear, and then you just, like, poke at people.
Exactly. And, it's what I compare to, like, Twilight Princess, for instance. It has, like, all these optional combat moves you can get, and it's like, wow, this would make Zelda's combat fun, except you created enemies that aren't built to take advantage of this.
It's an easy game.
Make me use it, so it's like, it's superfluous, right? Whereas, like, I mean, it wasn't superfluous. I guess it was. Cause, I mean, whatever. In PvP, you used it more, just because you had to. Cause everybody used it in PvP, right?
Yep.
Sure.
And the Souls games had the benefit of, like, their core combat being so satisfying on a basic level that, like, it was whatever if it did something unnecessary. This game, there's more instances where it's like, no, bitch, you better learn to parry. Like,
which is also the big difference is, so with parrying, because you don't have a shield, because a big thing with the Souls games, Demon Souls, Dark Souls, is you could potentially go through entire fights without even having to worry about being hit because of that shield, depending on how good your shield was, and how you used it. Whereas because you don't have the shield in Bloodborne, you can't just get up in an enemy's grill, hold up that shield, wait for them to hit it, bounce them away, and then attack. Because there's no sort of defense. Your defense is another offensive weapon.
Yeah, and it's like...
So how does the parrying work?
So the parrying works is, like, very specific frames. Like, the enemy is going to swing at you. It has to be a melee swing. Do not think it's a projectile that you can parry back. Right? And you're gonna shoot them with a gun, and that stun locks them, and then you get, like, a visceral attack, which in this game... He, like, sticks his hand right in that person's, like, heart or something. Or in some cases, the rectum, which has been really gross. And just, like, rips, like, the organ out or whatever the fuck. And it does a lot of damage. What's interesting about it is, like, first of all, I felt like after a certain point in Demon Souls and Dark Souls, like, their animation for when you had to be parry became very similar after a certain point. Like, it was so obvious when you had to parry. Right? Because, like, there's only so many different ways someone's gonna swing a sword. Like, it is what it is. In this game, it depends on, like, a very specific frame. Some of them, it's right when they're winding up, that's when you hit them. And others, it's like, when they're really close to hitting you is when you should be hitting them with the gun.
Yeah, like as they're coming down. Because, yeah, if you shoot certain enemies while they're winding up, they'll get hit and then they'll hit you back. Like, it doesn't affect them. Whereas, yeah, other enemies, as they're winding up, you shoot them, they'll go down on one knee or whatever it is.
Yeah. And then you visceral attack them,
because like with the parry, I guess like when you have like a shield, it's like you're using the shield to hit the sword when it's attacking.
Yeah.
That's the only time it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But because it's you're using a projectile weapon on them, it can be whenever they decide it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then,
it's usually trial and error.
Yeah. And the other interesting part is
trial and error.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that's interesting about the parry system in Bloodborne is like you have to account for your position, how that bullet is going to travel, because like sometimes you're going to shoot and it's like, yeah, you're going to miss at A, you're going to miss at this angle, and B, like there might be something in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes you end up hitting the steps and not the person, which whatever. And that's an interesting, and now there's like a stat that can be increased, right? That affects the guns.
Yep.
And that also increases, or at least Phil told me this, that increases the window for when you can parry a bit.
Interesting.
So, I'm guessing some people have made builds where like parrying motherfuckers is the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah.
In my case, I haven't messed with that stat, so it's like my window to parry someone.
Yeah, mine too.
Is very specific.
Very small.
So yeah, it sounds like you can't really use you can't be like an old west gunslinger, just like pow pow pow.
No, you have very limited bullets.
I don't know if you can go full shooter with it, but I've seen people do like gun builds so far. Like they're trying to make it work.
I could see the potential in a gun build, but I just don't know how well that would sustain itself.
Yeah, it's more like I feel like it would be like definitely like one of those like you got to get really good at this game to do that. In my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, like I don't think I'd mind. I don't think I mind this, or I would mind this if I played it. But it sounds like your options for like how you approach combat are a lot narrower. I mean, even like with your choice of like even with like some of the stat choices, like you have to be getting up in enemies' faces and like doing that dance.
Yeah, in a lot of ways it feels
in Demon Souls,
like
Dark Souls, you had the magic, you had different kinds of magic. You had
Faith,
like
pyro.
You had Faith, pyro. You could have your shield, or you could two-hand, or you could use bows.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has been.
Seems like looks like you gotta get up there.
Yeah, Bloodborne feels more like if Demon Souls and Dark Souls were RPGs that had action combat more or less. Like this is more like if Demon Souls and Dark Souls are action RPGs, Bloodborne feels more like an action game with RPG elements.
Yeah, for sure.
Like let me put it that way. I know that sounds weird, but like I felt like it does feel like Demon Souls and Dark Souls had more variety in its build types, whereas Bloodborne feels like a lot of it is just making dex builds, more or less. Like, you're still making offensive builds, almost across the board, right? And I don't know how much of that is just because, like, we're in this great limbo right now where so much of that game is unknown that we don't have, like, this sort of, like, guide or process to figure out, like, hey, you can do these builds, right? Like, I think in a few months we'll see if Bloodborne actually does have that variety that people want from these games. But it probably won't match, like, all the ways of Demon Souls and Dark Souls. Just because, like, it's been less loot in general.
Yeah, no, there's very, because in Dark Souls, the Souls games, it felt like you were finding sets of armor pretty often. Whereas, there's like, I'd say it's probably cut in half almost, the amount of, full sets of armor, you get the number of weapons you have. I'd say it's much less, like, especially the thing with the weapons, because every weapon kind of has two versions of it. I think that's how they kind of rationalized it as less weapons, but more kind of, intimacy in how you use them.
I mean, I'm not super mad about it just because I feel like I would prefer more attire, for instance, like just to have like a different look. But like the weapons I like just because like I feel like all the weapons now either have a purpose or fit a style or like are useful. Whereas in Demon Souls and Dark Souls, like, why the fuck would I use a broken sword?
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Why would I use this pansy-ass dagger? Like,
it almost feels like every weapon in Bloodborne, can work. It's like, you would never choose a broken sword over anything, basically. But you can totally see someone would prefer maybe the meat cleaver to the axe or something.
If you're someone that likes to play with speed, I could see you playing that entire game with the saw blade, especially when the gemstones come into it.
Yeah.
Right?
I was about to ask about that. Like, could you use that, like, starting weapon the whole game?
I haven't used my own starting weapon just because I've learned that
Either way.
In my situation, the saw blade may be all about speed, but one of the blades I has is quicker than the standard saw blade, and 2, I like power. I like to be able to hit them hard because the bosses hit me too often for me to try to win a game of speed.
Do you use Ludwig's blade?
Holy Blade, yes.
Yeah, that's what I used to.
So, I've been using that, but I have been using the axe, for instance, a lot more now. So if I had started with the axe, which you can, I would have been keeping one starting weapon in my rotation, if you will. You know what I mean?
No, I probably would have stuck with the axe too, but whatever.
Which, like, in Demon Souls and Dark Souls, I never rotated my weapons all that much.
Yeah.
I only really did it when, like, a specific boss was weak to something.
Mm-hmm. Fire or electricity.
Exactly.
And what's cool, about Bloodborne with the gems is in the, other games, the other Souls series, when you were upgrading a weapon, putting electricity, you were basically locking that weapon into that kind of tunnel. That is now my fire weapon, that is my electricity weapon.
Exactly.
Whereas, in Bloodborne, because you can take the gems in and out, the slotting, just in and out, you don't break them to get a new one, and you can just click, click, click.
Oh, nice.
They're very, malleable to what you want them to do.
Yeah, like, that's been a great addition. Like, just having that level of freedom to, like, experiment with the system, I think. I think a lot of it is because they were like, alright, what if people don't get it?
Yeah.
Let's give them the option to not fuck themselves up, right?
Yep.
And that's been really good, and just, man, the early boss fights in this game were really freaking strong. Like, whatever, the story's been told 1,000 times. Gagan got his ass whipped by Father G way too many times. Like, way too many fucking times. But I thought that was a really cool, like, even when I was getting my ass kicked, I was like, this is a super cool boss fight.
Father G, yeah, he was good.
Yeah, because, like, he
beat him first try?
I watched some of that.
Yeah,
you beat him first try?
Yeah, no, I saw him coming, like, I saw the cemetery, and I was with my girlfriend, I was like, that looks like a boss area, doesn't it? She's like, yeah, and I was like, I'm probably gonna lose, I didn't know what it was. She's like, no, go for it. And I didn't know about the cheesing him like some people do, like, hiding behind the gravestones. Didn't know about that. I was just getting really lucky with my dodges, and then I was like, oh, I've got him. And then the second stage of that fight happened, and I was like, oh my god. I was going through blood vials really quick. I thought I was gonna die, but then that was the first time I ever parried someone and did a visceral attack, took his entire health down, and I was like, felt good, man.
Must be
That's
nice.
what it's all about.
Must be nice.
No,
I can tell you, I watched Gagan play that fight for like an hour.
Couple hours, yeah.
Well, then I gave up because I had to go to sleep.
I had trouble with the boss fight that most people find easy, so it just depends.
Yeah, sometimes it's a matter of... Well, so, I love video games that say get good bitch, and Bloodborne is basically a Demon Souls Dark Souls game, so it naturally says get good bitch, and in the case of Father G, like, I think, like, there's a great, like, thing that can be done about, like, how Bloodborne starts and how it teaches you the game, for instance. Like, just this first area kind of gives me a Village vibe of Resident Evil 4. Right? Like,
that's exactly what I was thinking.
Like, I think part of it is because they're all, like, villagers in, like, this, like, totally, like, fucked up
Gothic,
European town, right? In, like, this horror-type setting. But, like, a lot of it is because, like, it was a skill check in the sense that, like, you had to learn that things were different. First of all, you had to learn that the offense is, like, this game is offense. Learn it. Like, learn to dodge, learn to position, and learn that mobs are going to be a way different beast than they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And there's no more one or two enemies at a time.
And the other thing it teaches you is that, like, enemies aren't going to stand in their spot, like they usually do in Demon Souls, Dark Souls, they roam.
Yep.
They have very specific patterns that they take, but they roam around the map. So in certain situations, you'll end up like getting further into the level and handling the mob, except you didn't pay attention to the enemies that went back a bit while you were working like the side atrium, and now they ended up behind you and they killed you. And it's like, yeah, you got hit off screen, but that's your fault. You forgot that they walked by you and they were going to come back, right?
Yep.
So that's one.
Yeah.
And then the other one is with Father G, like we said, like this game, you better learn to parry, right? Father G is essentially learn to parry or we will butt fuck you the entire game.
It's the tutorial on how to parry. Literally. And it's the hardest tutorial.
Yeah. It's pretty much, in my opinion. I mean, everyone else that we play, talk the game with, like, they figured it out in no time. In my case, it took some timing. But whatever.
To get over those bad habits.
Yeah.
No,
well,
you do.
I was also super freaking greedy with my hits, where like, so like we talk about Bloodborne being this offensive thing, it is still Dark Souls and Demon Souls. Like, it is still deliberate animations. It is still wait for your window to attack, and then know when your window closed so you can bail the fuck out.
Yeah, your windows are just smaller now and less, I'd say, obvious, because especially a lot of bosses I've found in this game, they will use in the Souls games, generally I found most enemies they'd have one big attack and then maybe another, like, little attack. Mm-hmm. So you could say, okay, he's doing his big attack, wait for after the little attack, then go in. Whereas I found with a lot of the Souls, or the Bloodborne enemies, they're very fluid in going from one move set to the next, like, immediately.
Yeah. Like,
so it's,
Yeah, like Father G, he'll go from, like, taking axe swings to making a quick dodge and then shooting at you, right? Real quick. Like, he was very good at that. That was throwing me off at times. And then when he turns into, like, his dual hand mode, like, he can go from, like, this underhand attack to this overhead strike to this quick combo. And he would do it in some split second times, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
While dodging. Like, he's, he fits that, like, that mold that we usually like, Ben, in our action game bosses, where, like, they're your height and they have a lot of, they're your doppelganger fight. You know what I mean?
The doppelganger fight,
yeah, like, Father G is effectively you, especially if you started with an axe and in a blunderbuss.
Mm-hmm.
And
at least up until the second stage of that fight.
Yeah, and then he turns into a werewolf, and then that part honestly was the hardest part for me. Like, after a while, I got to a point where I could handle Father G proper. He turned into a werewolf, and that gave me all the trouble in the world.
Well, a lot of bosses, the boss I'm stuck on right now, have stages to them, and they're not maybe as dramatic as turning into a werewolf, but they definitely have distinct moments.
They get more
fight.
aggressive.
Like, they know that they're losing, and then they kick it up a notch.
Yeah, Demon Souls and Dark Souls did the usual boss fight routine, which is like when they get to a certain health point, they get a new attack, right? Like, the new attack is like the big attack you need to worry about, right?
Yeah.
Bloodborne does that on top of the fact that in general enemies get faster, more aggressive, and in some cases just straight mix up the style. Like, Father G goes through 3 different stages, and early on he's playing you weapon out, gun out, and it's like a dance of dodging his bullets and dodging his axe, and then getting your visceral attacks in. Then he goes two-handed with the weapon.
Yep.
So now he's got more powerful swings. And then he becomes a werewolf, in which case he's way the fuck faster than you. He wrecks the tombstone. So, like, the tombstones you were using to cheese him no longer work. Like, you need to actually get him to an open space. And, stuff like that. And then, like, what's another boss? I don't wanna, Bloodstart Beast, for instance?
Oh my god, the
gets on its hind leg. Like, initially it's like a crawling enemy, like, on its forelegs. And then it gets on its hind legs, and it's not only aggressive, but it's, like, spitting out poison, or, like, what was it doing?
Its third phase is the hardest phase, in which he just, in the second phase he might have started spitting, but it's in the third phase where he just starts exuding it. Like,
Yeah.
it just comes off of his skin.
Yeah.
So it becomes a problem of you can't even kind of get behind him and just swing a few times because you're risking poison, which stacks way faster than it did in the past games.
Yeah.
And it takes your health down even faster than it did. So that's why a lot of people have problems with Bloodstart Beast.
Yeah.
It's the poison.
I think I died on him 4 times.
I did,
but,
yeah, no, me too.
But I didn't find him, like, nothing in the game bothered me the way Father G did. Father G, I felt lost at times. Every other boss, like, after a while, like, I figured it out. It was just executing I was doing poorly after a certain point, which whatever.
Yeah. There's only one boss in the game, because even the boss I'm stuck on right now, I finally had that breakthrough moment.
Yeah.
Where I know how to beat him now. There's only one boss in the game. I never had that breakthrough moment, had to summon someone, because I'm like, I don't get this fight.
Which
pissing
fight?
me up. The 4th boss. I don't know why. He's a problem for me.
Falcor?
Hit like a truck. Could never get behind him.
Falcor bothered you so much. My issue with Falcor, by the way, we started nicknaming the bosses in this game, and it has been honestly the best part of the whole game. Honestly, yeah, it's been great for the podcast because we've been able to call them like bullshit names, and everybody's like, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, but, Falcor, I don't know why, could not get behind the thing, ever, and he constantly was tanking my health, like one hit. It's frustrating.
He does hit really hard. My issue with him wasn't that, it was like, when you get behind him, he's got like these strandy shits that like block your view.
Yeah.
So like, then I couldn't realize like when my animation ended, right? Like I almost had to have a feel for my animations as opposed to like, being able to visually see it. So that was a bit stressful.
That's a lot of people's problem with the Bloodstart Beast, because his skin's hanging off him. They can't tell if they're actually hitting him or not.
Yeah. And then, like, the only boss I ended up summoning anyone was Mrs. Grievous, as I call her. But it wasn't because of the boss, necessarily. I had a lot of blood echoes at the time, like 90k, and I was not wanting to die, and I got invaded.
Oh no.
I'm like, beckoning bell. So I got a beckoning bell. So I just summoned a guy, and then 2 guys joined my shit and we wrecked him. I'm like, yes! And then we ended up taking on the boss, and the boss was a joke.
Because it's 3 people,
Because it's 3 people, yeah. Like, it was completely undermined. You know. And in certain cases in that game, I've been, like, using so they made getting summoned and summoning people a little bit more friendly, I think. Sort of. In that, like, you have this small resonant bell, you just ring it, and then, like, you go further into the map, and, like, what it is if you're close to someone that's in a similar area to you, and they ring the beckoning bell, you're gonna end up being called into their world, right? So, like, I feel like I'm getting summoned more in this than I did in Dark Souls or Demon Souls.
Yeah, before you had to, like, put down a thing and wait.
Yeah, usually I put it down near the fog door of the boss fight, and I just killed some time in the area because I wanted to get summoned because I wanted those souls. Like, that was my farming method. In Bloodborne, I'll just open up the area, and I'll just ring the bell, and I'll just be like, alright, let me play it proper, and then if I get summoned, I get summoned. Which, A, I don't use my blood vials when I go to someone else's world.
No, neither do I. If I die, I die.
Yeah, like, I die. I don't give a fuck. There's no penalty here. And B, it's like this great way to farm and just pile on the echoes and just like... I mean, in some cases, I didn't progress. Like, you'll watch one of my streams. I kept getting summoning into someone's world and then dying. That nothing got done. But I ended up with so many echoes, I'm like, well, I guess I go up 2 levels now. So, that was awesome. And,
the only problem I have with it, and it's so weird, they patched this in the original Dark Souls, I don't know why they went back. Say, you have to use Insight, which is like humanity, to ring the beckoning bell to summon someone, but even if you don't summon someone, you still use the Insight.
Yeah.
Like, it would be the equivalent of paying for a sandwich and then the guy just saying, no, you don't get your sandwich.
That actually is frustrating, because... for Jolteon, I had to I never beat him with my summons, because he was so tough at the time I took him on, he actually beat my co-op partners.
That's what's happening with, Ligarius with me. They always get killed before I get anything.
I call him the Lich King.
The Lich King? Yeah, no, that's good.
Aljosa called him, I forgot the Lich King's actual name. It's like Artheus or something.
Yeah, Arthas.
Arthas,
Yeah.
right. So, he was calling him Arthas, so I just was like, oh, the Lich King. Okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
And then, what was I talking about again? Right, Jolteon. He kept wrecking him. So after a while, I'm just like, all right, fuck it. I don't really got any insight left. Might as well just take him clean. And I ended up pulling it off. Like,
nice.
What's fascinating about this game is, like, in a lot of cases, the bosses look more intimidating than they actually are. Like, Jolteon specifically looks like a fucking beast. Like, I mean, it's in the name, too. But when you actually fight him, you realize, oh, he's got very predictable boss patterns. He can be crushed to make a simpler fight. And it's like, that's awesome. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, I haven't fought him. He's optional, I'm guessing.
Carl said he's not optional, but I'm failing to see when you'd ever have to fight him.
Yeah,
so he is optional in my opinion.
I'm pretty sure the first boss in the game is optional.
Yeah, Cleric Beast is not mandatory.
So weird. Pretty sure Bloodstart Beast isn't mandatory either.
Nope, you could use the emblem and skip them entirely, so... People wouldn't let me call the Cleric Beast Groot, because they don't get the Groot vibe. To me, he looked like a giant tree. Or a tree monster.
I could see that, especially with his arm.
Yeah.
I could see that, yeah.
Thank you.
But, yeah, it would be weird. It'll be interesting, because, again, I don't look into this stuff till after I beat the game. How many of them are actually mandatory?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, it's been really cool to, like, I love this part of the window, because, like, what was it? A few years ago, Fez got, like, all this credit for being this game you played with the community. And rightfully so. It was that game. But it's like, that's what Demon Souls and Dark Souls were. Like, when they came out, and Dark Souls 2, to a similar extent, when they came out, you were solving things with the community. You were trying to figure out how certain things work. You were trying to figure out, like, builds. You were trying to figure out the lore. Like, you were piecing your information with other people's information and be like, oh, that's what that scene is. That's why this area is the way it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the pinwheel thing, like I always come back to, like, the boss sucks, but, like, the story behind that boss is super freaking depressing.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, it's built around, like, this, like, family that became this, like, hideous thing in death, right? And
Soul series is so uplifting.
Yeah, yes. Oh my god, the Soul series is so uplifting. And then, this has been the same way. Like, we keep coming back to, like, oh, this is what I did during the fight, or, like, oh, actually, I did it this way, right? So, like, you have, like, variety like that. But then, like, Phil posted something on the forum the other day, and we all just went, like, you can use that item that way?
Oh, right.
Yeah, like, I don't want to spoil it, because I feel like it'd be cool if, like, someone found it on their own, right? So...
It's logical, for sure.
It's super logical. It's like the level of logic you would usually expect from, like, things that were, good adventure games, when they use logic puzzles, and you'd, like, so they get, but, like, with those games, you're in the mindset to think of that way, right? Mm-hmm. With this game, you're just going, like, I feel like you get into that RPG mode of, like, numbers. Like, I need, which gives me more numbers? Which gives me more fire numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, in this situation, it's like, it played to what that enemy was, and you were too focused on numbers to see it. And it's
it would be like in a bad game if they gave you an item right before that boss, and then you're like, well, obviously these two things are tied together.
Exactly. Like, because it wasn't Zelda, where you were using the item all the time, you didn't even think about using it the way it was. In fact, for a lot of the game, like, it's hilarious, it's on the Twitch stream, like, even way before the fight and after the fight. I mean, I'm talking to Phil, I'm like, this is such a useless fucking item. Why would I ever use this thing? And then he showed that video, I'm like, that's such a cool use! I'm so mad I didn't use it. That's awesome.
So, like, how well, like, is there, like, a lot of, so it sounds like there's a lot of optional content, like, more than, would you say there's more than Dark Souls?
I think it's about the same.
I would say the main story is probably shorter in Bloodborne than any of the other Souls games.
Yeah, I feel like it's about the same, just because, like, maybe more optional stuff. But,
I'd
like,
say the ratio of optional content to main content is higher in Bloodborne, but that's just because I feel like the main content is less.
I mean, I feel like you'd have to show me, like, what was mandatory in Dark Souls.
Right, yeah, we don't necessarily.
Then I'd go, okay, yeah, I guess, like, you have to fight the Taurus demon, you have to fight the Asylum guy, you have to fight... But, like, you don't necessarily...
Not the second Asylum guy.
Not the second one, the first one, though.
The gargoyles you have to fight.
You have to fight the gargoyles. You're gonna have to fight Qualag.
You have to fight all 4 of the
main bosses, the Lord Vessel bosses.
You have to fight Ornstein and Smog.
Yeah, you have to fight Ornstein. But you don't have to fight, like, Gwendolyn, for instance.
No. But that's even a secret fight.
Yeah. You don't necessarily have to fight the Gaping Dragon.
Do you not?
Well, if you have
I guess if you start with the Master Key, you can go around.
if you start with the Master Key, you just go through the Valley of the Drakes and go right to Bloodborne.
Yeah, but, like, no one does that.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying... but, like, Bloodborne is similar, like, we all went to the Cleric Beast, but, like, you should have just went to Father G straight up. Right? It's like, we all fought the Bloodstart Beast, but you could have just bought an item and skipped it entirely, right? And it's like, you'd just be exploring an area and you'd end up in a place where you fought a boss. It's like, in my case, in one of the, my friends who was playing the game, he ended up fighting one of the optional bosses just by simply just exploring the area, right?
That's why I'm, especially me, how much I explore things. Like, I inspect every pixel of every frame. How I miss Jolteon. Like, I still have not found him. And he's early.
Dude, I don't want to tell you where it is now.
No, it's fine. I'll maybe stumble across it.
Yeah, you're probably gonna find your way to that fight sooner or later.
But the enemy variety is very impressive, I think. Some people have complained, but I think it's nice.
It's about in line with what the Souls games usually is. Like, they've usually had a variety of enemy types. I think the boss fights have been varied too. I think some of them... I think everybody's focusing on the part where, like, some of them are duds, and it's like, Demon Souls and Dark Souls had duds. Like, let's not.
Definitely.
Let's not get carried away here. The bed of chaos happened. Like,
Dead Demon Souls has an entire dud world.
The swamp, right.
Fuck the swamp.
Swamp's great.
Yeah.
No.
Swamp is great. Anyway.
Crap area.
But False King was a hype fight. Come on.
False King's pretty legit.
Yeah. But, like, I think what's interesting is, like, when Bloodborne's at its weakest is when it has Dark Souls-styled bosses. And what I mean by that is large, take-up-the-screen type enemies with very, very deliberate animation, so it's like, I'm just circle-strafing this thing for a large stretch. I mean, like, whatever, Falcor gave Chris trouble, necessarily.
For some reason.
Because he hits so hard.
Yeah.
But, like, I think that was because it was also an early boss, so he's not as leveled in certain statistics at that time. Mm-hmm. Once we get into the mid-game and late-game where I'm at, which, whatever, I'm super leveled at this point. But, like, there was an optional boss where it's this, like, super intimidating-looking enemy that's creepy as fuck, and I was fighting it, and I'm like, this is the biggest puss wagon ever. Like, this boss isn't even remotely demanding. So...
Oh no, he's gonna step on me.
Yeah.
At least he looked cool.
Yeah, at least he looked cool. I think that's really where Bloodborne's bosses have been, like, thriving in a lot of cases, that a lot of them just look super cool.
Yeah.
Like, a big knock against Dark Souls 2 was it's a whole lot of dudes in armor.
Mm-hmm.
Because that game had too many boss fights to the point where it felt like there were too many sub-bosses that the game was parading around as actual bosses. Right? Yeah. In Bloodborne, it's been like, when you get a boss, they live up to the fucking expectation. Like, they live up to that scenario.
Yeah, because I just felt like, sometimes I go, like, 2 hours straight, not of dying, but of just exploring an area before I found a boss. Whereas, in Dark Souls 2, it felt like every other room, almost.
Yeah, like, in Dark Souls 2, when you see a fog door, you're like, well, it's gonna be a boss.
And, like, half the time you're right.
Yeah. Honestly, it was more than half after a certain point.
No, I do like that in Bloodborne. The first time you enter an area, there is no fog gate.
Yeah, so the game trolls you sometimes. Like, sometimes you're just, because, like, you were trained to, fog
gate, boss is coming.
Yeah.
Or
so,
fog gate, there could be a boss.
And, like...
No fog gate, no boss.
Yeah, I wish it wasn't cutscene heavy sometimes to show a boss.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, the way the Cleric Beast shows up is super fucking cool. He comes over the top of this, like, building shit and just hops down. And you're like, wait, I wasn't ready for a fight. Whoa, who invited you?
You're like, I thought that was the, like, entrance to the castle when I'd have the fight.
Yeah. And then, like, other bosses, like, they have their elaborate cutscene. It's like, alright, whatever. But, like, you know, whatever. Some of them look like super intimidating cutscene. You're just like, oh, fine.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah. The game has covenants, apparently, and I have yet to find
Are
it.
you serious? I haven't found a single one.
Yeah, no, I found one character that lets you join a covenant, but I couldn't join for whatever reason.
Oh.
So I'm just gonna have her killed because she's a bitch. But there's plenty of covenants apparently in the game, and it's like this is what I mean. Like, this is the cool part about these games. Is like when there's nothing known about these games, they're so much more fun to explore because everyone like. I may be getting my ass kicked, but the joy I'm getting is that first of all, Ricky was making similar mistakes I was. Maybe not necessarily stuck on Father G. I'm the only one that made him hype. I Tower Knighted him.
You did Tower Knight him, yeah.
Yeah. So, that made me feel better. And just like, the usual Demon Souls, Dark Souls thing is when you watch, like, other people die, it's like, you know what, this makes me feel better, because it's like, I may be bad, but I ain't that bad.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
For sure.
Or you at least feel great that like someone else is suffering as much as you are.
The struggle is real, yeah.
And it's been so fucking good. Like, this has been my crack for the last week. Like, it has been really bad. Like, last week has been eat, sleep, work, Bloodborne, repeat.
Nice.
Eat, sleep, work, Bloodborne, repeat. Eat, sleep, work, Bloodborne, repeat. Eat, sleep, work, Bloodborne, repeat.
Yeah, I've been trying not to, because this is...
to break up the monotony.
Yeah. No.
Talk about Bloodborne.
No, honestly, like, what was it, like, Thursday or something last week? I just told myself, I'm not touching Bloodborne today. Like, I'm gonna force myself to not touch this game, because it has taken over my life.
Withdrawal.
Yeah, and I'm like, I still gotta do this shit for Metal Gear in September? It's gonna be terrible.
Oh my god.
Like, I'm gonna be really lousy that week, too. Because, like, Metal Gear is gonna be more inherently fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna...
No, this you can technically pull yourself away from, because there are certain points where it's just, what the fuck? Like, it's just so demoralizing.
I mean, Ben was right the whole time. Like, you're fighting Father G, and you need to walk away, take a breather, and then come back, because at this point you're just getting sloppier and sloppier for no discernible reason other than you need to be away from the game.
Yeah.
And it ended up being true. I came back to it, and I beat him. And it looked easy all of a sudden, and I'm like, fuck you. Fuck you, Ben. Fuck you.
It's true. I've accomplished amazing things from walking away from a game and coming back to it.
Honestly, that's always been my bad habit in puzzle games, where, like, I don't want to do that.
But then you're stuck in a mentality.
Then I get stuck into it, and then, like... Well, I hate it for this reason. I'll try to go to sleep.
And you're still thinking.
And then I got the answer for the puzzle, and I needed to go solve it before I forget it.
Yeah. No, that's...
Isn't that, like, an amazing moment when, like, you're just, like, doing something else, and you're just like, oh my god.
I get it now.
Yeah, no.
It all makes sense.
That's happened for me in Braid. That happened to me a lot in Space Cam. Like, I just thought of, like, a thing in my head, and I'm like, wait a minute, if I did this, those trucks would go a certain way, and then I could get the hydrogen to go to this other plant. I'm like, wait, I got this.
Yeah.
You know?
That's what, well, the Souls games and Bloodborne have always kind of been puzzle games in disguise. You finally figure out that animation, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. Why I was dying so much.
Mm-hmm. Damn, I want to talk about some of the story stuff with you, but I can't.
Well...
Yeah, it sounds like it gets pretty crazy.
Yeah, I've heard.
What I heard last night.
This has been a little bit more direct of a story than Demon Souls. Like, it's still not, like, super heavy on cutscene and exposition. Like, it's still piecing it together, but it's been a little bit more straightforward and obvious with where they're going with their plot, or, like, what they're, like, referencing, or, like, specifically the religious undertones. Mm-hmm. Like, it's definitely played to the whole Antichrist stuff a little bit. And it's been entertaining, in my opinion. Like, it really fits the themes. It makes me... I've enjoyed reading some of the items just to be, like... To get an idea of why certain areas were a certain way. Like, that castle you're in, Chris, because we're in the same castle, like, I'm incredibly curious why all those women are crying.
Oh, yeah, I think I know why. It's kind of fucked up.
Yeah, and it's like, these games always do, like, a fantastic job, like, feeling very complete in, like, every element going well with each other.
Mhm.
Like, even in Dark Souls, like, I love the way it tells its story. Like, I don't particularly care for the plot it actually tells, because it's dude gets out of prison, rings 2 bells, kills 4 monsters, and then fights Gwyn. Right? Like, the plot is that. There's nothing else to it.
I found Dark Souls 2 actually had a decent plot.
I mean, I guess.
Where you're basically...
Dude, no way. Fuck that. There's a tree blocking your path, and the solution to getting over this tree, this tree that he could just climb over, is go kill 4 of the most, like, powerful creatures in existence.
That's Dark Souls 1. I'm not vouching for that game.
Dark Souls 2 is that exact same thing. Except Dark Souls 1 was a little bit more fair about the whole go kill the 4 creatures. Like, that was just what it was.
Yeah, but Dark Souls 2, you become, like, the king of the underworld. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I need to play that game. I might actually now play that game after Bloodborne.
A big complaint of Dark Souls 2 that Bloodborne kind of fixed is a lot of people didn't like the fact that in Dark Souls 2 the world is very disconnected.
It was completely illogical in its makeup.
Yeah, you'd be in a sun-kissed area 1 minute, and then you go into the next room, and suddenly the whole world would be like a forest. And you're like, how did this happen? A little bit. Whereas Bloodborne goes back to that. I'm in this castle, and I can look down, I can see that courtyard, and I can go down to that. That's that first area that I was in so long ago. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's like, I'm eventually gonna go there, I'm eventually gonna go over there, that place I'm eventually gonna get to, that was a place I was way the fuck long ago. Holy shit, we've been through a lot.
Yeah, we've been through a lot, boys.
And it's like, it's not that Dark Souls didn't have shortcuts, but like, this feels more like
Demon Souls
territory because of the frequency with the shortcuts come, and like, you're more dependent on the shortcuts in Demon Souls. Like, Dark Souls, you eventually, it's more like you're going from bonfire to bonfire.
Yeah, you can just hop.
Yeah. Whereas this is like, you have one central bonfire in this, like, pocket hub, and now you need to figure out a way to make your path to the boss quicker. Or if you don't, you're gonna have to
just run through
a really long run. Yeah.
There are some, however, for all the things I like that Bloodborne does, there are some quality of life changes that Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2 had.
Blood vials.
That they've either reverted on or taken away and added something that's more frustrating to use.
Fuck blood vials. Fuck blood vials. Fuck blood vials. Fuck
yeah,
blood
like,
vials.
early on in the game, seemed like, oh, this is way easier than Dark Souls, Demon Souls, and Dark Souls 2. Like, I have so many blood vials, I never need to use them. I'm just gonna stockpile all of them. It'll be a fun time. And then you get up to a boss that wastes 20 of your blood vials, and you died, and now you don't have those 20 blood vials, and you're starting to dip into your stockpile. Yeah. It's not like the Estus Flask where they're just back every time.
Yeah. So they made using a blood vial quicker, which is awesome, because I feel like sometimes when you were getting an Estus Flask, you might as well have bought that damn engagement ring. How committed you were to that animation.
You might as well just let him kill you, because he's gonna do it anyways.
Like, the blood vials...
Estus Flask, like Monster Hunter.
Yeah. The blood vials, they snap really quick, but like... So here's my thing, like... I know El Josa wanted to go the whole, if you're good, you're never gonna need the blood vial from. Like, first of all, that is way too much of a punishment for sucking at the game. I am perfectly fine with getting my ass kicked and being put in a position to do something over and over again. But blood vials, with the way they work, is you eventually have to go farm for your health supplies.
Yep.
And that's time-consuming, especially in a game, like, if they had done that in Dark Souls, at least the merchants would have set prices. In Bloodborne, those prices eventually get hiked up the further you get into the game.
Yep.
Because
it scales with how many... Yeah.
So it's like, you made all these other, changes to, be, I don't want to say accessible, but more approachable. But then, you made, and I'm not usually one to say make a game accessible, but I'm not also a fan of making me do something tedious, because I'm doing that poorly, right?
Yeah.
Because, I think that's overkill at that point. I'm all for punishing the player on some level for not playing well. A stone trophy is a ranking. But blood vial farming is, you made me do something I don't want to do.
Yeah. I mean, I found an area where you can farm them really easily, but especially when blood vials generally, except for this place, are not a guarantee to drop.
Yeah.
It's like you could go through an entire area and get like 2, and then they just throw Quicksilver bullets at you. And you're like, I don't need these anymore.
Yeah,
I literally
yeah.
can't pick these up anymore. I have full. Like, I can't.
Pebbles, man.
Pebbles, yeah. Just don't need it. And
the worst feeling in the world is when you get a pebble.
Another quality of life thing that's gone is in the other games, you could go from... You didn't have to go back to the main hub world to jump from bonfire to bonfire. In this game, if you're out in the wilderness, you find a lamp, which is a bonfire. You have to use, it just says go back to Hunter's Dream, which is the main hub world, and then you can pick where you want to go. And especially with Bloodborne's current load times, that's like 2 minutes of not doing anything.
Oh my god, it's so excruciating. It's like, Dark Souls did it perfect. Like, I could level at the bonfire, I could repair weapons at the bonfire, I could do all these things at the bonfire. Like, okay, on one hand, it makes more it seems more reasonable to have, like, the central hub you need to buy things from.
But, like, give me a break.
But, like, it got to a point where, like, if you're farming, it's too much of an issue. Like, if you just want to, like, in Dark Souls, when you're farming an area, you go back to the bonfire, you reset the area. In Bloodborne, you go back to the bonfire, go back to the Nexus, which is a 2-minute load time, go back to the area you were just at, 2 more minute load time, and now you're farming again. Right?
Yeah.
I thought it was only like 1 minute.
It is like 1 minute, but...
Listen, it feels forever. No, some of those areas it feels like 2 minutes, man.
Well, because going back to the Hunter's Dream is only like 20, 30 seconds because it's a small place. But when you're going from there to an area, depending on the size of that area, it could take a while. And because it is... I mean, this does feel like the direct sequel to Demon Souls in the way that it's not like when you're in an area, like in Dark Souls, when this area is so big and there'd be like 3 bonfires in it. If you go to an area in Bloodborne, there's like 1 lamp, and the next lamp you're gonna find is when you kill the boss at the end of this area.
Yeah. I mean, there are some hikes you need to take into levels.
Yeah. And especially with those respawning enemies.
Yeah.
Huh.
I fucking hate... Alright, so if there are knocks I have against this game, like, Dark Souls has bad level design in certain segments because it clearly feels rushed. Like, when you play when you play the Demon Ruins and Lost Zealot, to me, it always felt obvious this was something like, it was really late in development, and they weren't able to finish this. Cause, like, this just looks lazy in comparison to everything else. Like,
just this wide open volcano area.
Yeah, nothing else felt like this. You know what I mean? Like, nothing else felt like this just bland, in a way, right?
Yeah,
like,
vacant.
Like, Crystal Cave isn't particularly enjoyable because it's just walking on invisible platforms, but that's just misguided bad design, not necessarily...
They didn't have time.
We didn't do this correct. We basically didn't finish it. It's just a rush job, and that's why it's bad design. Bloodborne has things more like the Crystal Cave in the sense that, like, it's just outright just not enjoyable in my opinion. Because, like, when I think of what's enjoyable about these games, I think it's the core combat and just fighting enemy to enemy. And, like, there's this one area where you're dealing with respawning enemies and, like, a fucking laser shooting beast. And it turned that whole area into I'm gonna run through it because fighting is pointless.
Right.
Because if you try to fight, you're actually making it way the fuck harder on yourself. Like, you're just wasting your time. And then there was another area where you're dealing with a stupid, like, a thing more annoying than Curse.
There is no such thing.
The Frenzy is way worse.
I've never been frenzied.
You're gonna see it. And, and it's like this invisible thing is hitting you, and I can't fight back, so I have to run forward. I have to run into this group of spiders. I have to deal with this, like, large mob of spiders in a game that runs a combat engine that's not always best suited for mob control, necessarily. Like,
right.
In Demon Souls, Dark Souls, you try to keep your mobs in check. Like,
right.
2 or 3, fine. When you gotta deal with 10 of them, it's usually you're fucked.
Yeah, you're dead. You done goofed.
Yeah, and then, like, whatever, I got stuck on this 100 for, like, a long-ass time, but...
Hunter fights are crazy.
Hunter fights are great. Like, in general, I like...
Talk about doppelganger fights. That's literally it.
Like, they
Can I
take
ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
What's your best death story so far?
I have a funny one. It was in a chalice dungeon. which we haven't talked about yet. They're basically randomized dungeons, but because they're randomized, obviously there's no sort of rhyme or reason to any of them. So there's this guy at the top of the ladder, like a skeleton guy, and he's throwing fire bombs down. So I'm like, oh my god, this fucking guy. So as I'm climbing up the ladder, he falls down. I'm like, you bitch. So as I get to the top of the ladder, he throws a bomb at me, hits me, I get staggered, I fall off the ladder, fall back down, he throws a bomb up in the air, and it kills us both. So like...
Kills them both?
Because, yeah, it kills us both. So he just started, like, juggling them and, like, hoping that he would hit me until he just killed us both. So I was just laughing so hard because I, like, literally was out of control of my character's movements for a solid 15 seconds until he killed me.
Sounds kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, it was.
Random dungeons.
Yeah, random dungeons. They're kind of like, I don't know, this is going to be a weird reference, but do you guys remember the dot hack games?
Yeah.
Okay, so the dot hack games, a lot of how the dungeons were handled in that is you'd link up 3 keywords, random keywords, and it would use those 3 keywords to create a randomly generated dungeon. This is kind of like that in that you use materials like bloodstones or tomb mold, shit like that, and a chalice is like the main component. And depending on what materials and items you kind of put together, you create a harder or easier dungeon for yourself. The bosses, I don't believe, are randomized. They're, depending on how many floors are in the dungeon, there'll be like 3 or 5 floors or whatever. The floors in those dungeons are all randomized, but the boss at the end of the floors isn't. Because Goggin and I had this, we had different dungeons, but the same bosses.
Did we have different dungeons, though?
I'm pretty sure we had different dungeons. Did you have swinging axes at any point in your dungeon?
Swinging axes, yes. Like
you did?
Sun's Fortress?
Yeah, like Sun's Fortress.
Yeah.
Oh. Maybe it's just the first one.
I think the first dungeon is legitimately, like...
That is the first dungeon.
Like, to just give you an idea. Like,
okay.
One of my deaths in that dungeon was, like... So there's ring maidens that respawn enemies. Fuck that bitch. Yeah. And... You open up the shortcut to the boss fight of an area, and then, like, sometimes you just run right to it. And, like, if you die to the boss, which, poor you, because the bosses are a joke.
Are easy, yeah.
Yeah. And then, like, so you'll run sometimes, and, like, a mob of enemies will spawn on you, and they wrecked me, because I was just running and not ready for it, and so I got my ass whipped. Yep. And then, another good one, the area with the Gatling gun hunter.
Yeah.
There's a church thing nearby, and I was exploring, like, the top balcony area.
Yeah.
And I was setting myself up to jump across the thing, but I accidentally rolled off down into the church.
Oh, good.
In the middle of, like, 4 enemies. Yeah. One of them screams and aggroes all the enemies in the area. And, like, all 10 of them basically started mugging me.
Yeah.
And... I got 6 of them down, so it was getting really close and tense, but then, like, one of them caught me off screen, and it's like, fuck.
Yeah.
So that was good.
There's always a roll death in there somewhere where you meant to jump, yeah.
There was one of the bosses that some of the people had problems. I found the boss fight annoying. Like, I died 2 times, but I didn't find it hard, because after a while, like, once I knew what it was like, this is a joke. Like, it's not intimidating, it's just got this one lame attack. And... I didn't beat it, I tied with it. Like, we both killed each other at the same time. Or, like, his minions killed me as I was killing him. Yeah. But, because Bloodborne is a good game, tie goes to the runner, so I win.
You pray slaughtered. That's all that matters.
Pray slaughtered, that's all that matters. The reason why Gears of War is not that good of a game is because if you tie with General Rom, it doesn't count as a win. Right, Ben?
That's what happened to me. I tied with General Ram. I got the achievement for beating him, but I didn't get the achievement for winning the act for beating the game.
Yeah.
I restarted the checkpoint and I had to beat it again.
That's so bad. Fuck that.
Yeah, fuck that. Tie goes to the runner. Good games need to establish this. Jesus.
That Gatling gun was so cool because I didn't know that you could. There's a hunter down on the ground too of that Gatling gun.
Yeah.
That was like still the coolest moment in that game for me. I was fighting that hunter thinking I was out of range of the Gatling gun or something because he wasn't shooting at me. So I'm going to toe-to-toe with this guy, and those fights are really fast. They move fast, you move fast, and you're like dodging each other back and forth. They almost like, I was fooled a little bit the first time. I thought it was a person that had invaded because they have very human-like AI.
Yeah, no, they're very aggressive. They do a lot of the things you would do.
Yeah, for sure. And they healed, so I was confused. And then the Gatling gunner, like, just started blasting on me. So I'm dodging the Gatling gunner, dodging the hunter. Sparks are flying across my feet as I'm flying. And it was such a gunslinger cool moment.
Was the frame rate handling it?
Yeah, no, it was handling it. Sometimes it drops.
Yeah, sometimes you get frame rate dips, and I swear the frame rate has to be like 3.
It goes full Blighttown.
Yeah. Old Yarnham was pretty Blighttown in frames department.
It's because that's one of the few areas where it's like loading the whole area at once. Because you're seeing across that like little channel.
Yeah, that's true.
So you're loading the whole thing. Like you can basically from the start see that church that the Bloodstart Beast is in.
Yeah. All around, I've had an awesome time. I've been streaming this game like a lot. Like our Twitch stream. Like, Wazdy used it the other day to show off City Skylines, and it was a cool game, and it's completely buried under Bloodborne footage. Like, just buried under Bloodborne footage.
Every moment of your game time has been on stream. That's cool.
Yeah. Most of it. Some of it didn't make it, just because I didn't stream it, because I was like, because it was like right before work, so I'm like, let me just get one thing in. This is why I needed a break, because like, I almost missed my goddamn train to work because I was playing Bloodborne so much. Yeah, I was like, wait, I can squeeze in a little bit more. I think I can beat this boss before I have to get to my train.
It's definitely a problem.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Can you still just like stop wherever and pick up exactly where you left off?
What?
Can you still like quit from wherever you are and pick up exactly where you left off?
Yeah, so surprisingly, like even enemies. Cause like, my game randomly resetted the other day. As I was engaged with an enemy, I'm like, well, fuck, I lost my souls. But when I came back, like, the enemy was standing where he was, I was standing where I was, and we fought. I'm like, that's cool. Awesome. I feel like I should have been able to do that with boss fights. But whatever. Yeah, Bloodborne's terrific, and,
great way to start a year.
Yeah, can we, by the way, video game industry, round of applause in March, by the way. Round of applause.
Nice March. Nice going.
This is what I feel like video games should be like in terms of releases, because let's go over it. Like, whatever, we did a bad job of actually playing the stuff from, you played Hotline Miami too.
I did.
Okay, so yeah, we played 2 of the games from March, and Wazzy played Cities. No one played Ori. But like, this month had the following. It had a AAA game that lived up to the billing.
For once.
Bloodborne, or at the least was good. Like, I'm getting tired of AAA games coming out, and they're not even good enough to be good. Like, they're just okay.
They're filthy 80s on Metacritic, like, give me a break.
Filthy 80s. Chris,
I mean, a lot of these games are like 70s these days.
Chris, some of them have had the decency of being in the 7s.
Yeah, that's disgusting. That's filthy.
Sometimes they're not even good, and then
that's
they're like
pure trash.
Yeah, that's way below the 85.
85 or bust. Listen, guys.
Anyway,
February was awful.
So, like, then you had February. February. Monster Hunter 4 did really well.
Monster Hunter was good.
Yeah. So, what I was gonna say is like, so you had Bloodborne. You had the AAA game that lived up to its bill, right?
Yep.
You had the indie darlings get their sequels that were legitimately good games. Ollie Ollie 2 and Hotline Miami 2, right?
Yeah.
You had a, like, smaller team that's getting, like, AAA funding, getting funding from a big publisher like Microsoft, and Ori get a lot of positive reactions, right? So that game lived up to the billing. You had a game that
Cities is a really great success story.
Yeah, City Skylines is basically like, here's this type of game, this market that's not being accounted for because EA fucked it up, and here's this game that's filling that gap, and it's
the
awesome.
Smaller developer just comes out of almost nowhere and like really delivers something great.
Yeah, like City Skylines does, and then you have a game that lives up to the positive, like, fan fulfillment that we were expecting when the Kickstarter boom happened a few years ago in Pose of Eternity, which has been getting nothing but positive reviews and reactions.
I heard about that.
There's a great video on it on Super Bunny Hop that I think is awesome, and he really loved that game. And then I'm missing things like Helldivers came out this month, and that's this really cool co-op game that's got these unique ideas. Like Eroica on Our Form, friend of the podcast, check him out on Point Insertion and Pedal to the Metal, really digs that game. And it's if video game months were more like this, whatever, this is just an absurdly good month. They don't all have to be this good all the time. But in general,
it'd be a problem if they were this good all the time.
Yeah, I feel like we never have, we wouldn't have enough time to play some of these. It felt like we skipped away too many games in March. But, it'd be great. This is what, the video game industry needs to be. The AAA games, at least some of them living up to their billing.
It needs variety,
yeah.
is what you're saying. Because, we don't need to buy all of these games, because a lot of those games wouldn't appeal to all of our tastes, but it had something for everyone.
Exactly.
It's not like in October where it's I hope you like shooters, boys and girls, because...
Or October, it's horror month, so you get Evil Within and Alien Isolation. It's maybe these two games should have came out at different months when I wouldn't want to play both of them right away. Or maybe I don't want to play Halo and Call of Duty at the same exact time. Maybe,
For real.
And it's this month, it had a top-down action game. It had an action RPG. It had a Western RPG. It had a JRPG. I'm forgetting this one. Well, not a traditional
Type Zero came out.
Type Zero, which technically a remaster, but gets a free pass for the following reason: it never came out in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And Will's been playing a shitload of that, and he loves it. You had an FPS for the people who wanted to play Battlefield Ferguson. Will had to do a review on that. You can check it out on some website.
Poor guy.
But he actually liked it, I think. I don't know.
Oh, strange.
And like I said, we had a SimCity game, it had a platformer with Metroidvania elements. The very last game of this month is a Metroid-type game.
Axiom Verge.
And that's getting positive reactions like that. March was so good, I just forgot that game because it's the last game of March.
Yeah, it just squeaked in there.
Very, very good month. And a lot of good games to play. And hopefully the rest of the year, delivers on this type of stuff. Cause,
and then I feel like this generation's really arrived.
Yeah, because I feel like I could easily see a lot of our top 10s being filled out from games that came out in March.
Yeah, well, this year already has the bar. It's Bloodborne or bust at this point.
I mean, yeah, that's easily, it and Bayonetta 2 are easily the best games of the current generation. Of the new generation, if you will.
Yep.
Yeah. I would probably lean towards Bayonetta 2 because I didn't get my ass kicked in that game, but I'm not biased or anything. I don't know. Whatever. They're all fantastic games. The second excellent game of this generation, in my opinion, without having played some of these other stuff in March. Who knows? Maybe Ori is excellent too, and it's oh, fuck. Fuck. Goddamn. So
wait, you'd put Bayonetta 2 over a game that doesn't have cinematic walking?
There's no cinematic walking.
I guess what? Bloodborne wins this one.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Oh, shit.
Fuck.
It's over.
Damn, I wasn't even thinking about that.
That's the
just saying.
Whatever, Ben. Yeah.
Bayonetta 2 is a 7 on principle.
Bloodborne is the best game of this new generation due to a glorious severe lack of cinematic walking. I can't think of one segment that had cinematic walking.
Dude, you don't know. The last scene of that game could potentially have
last scene of that game has cinematic walking. 4 out of 10. just because it waited so long that they did it to piss me off.
They're gonna patch it in tonight.
Yeah, they're gonna patch it in tonight. We didn't fix the load times. We instead added cinematic walking.
To the very end of the game.
Yeah.
Dude, maybe if they didn't have, or if they had cinematic walking, we wouldn't have to deal with the load times, because that's basically what cinematic walking is.
Oh, wait, no. Time out. The load times are fantastic. The load times are fantastic. I'd rather have the load times.
Just that Bloodborne logo.
Because Demon Souls, with its checkpoint system, would checkpoint you back to a cinematic walking spot, so it would be way the fuck worse.
I'm gonna say this, though. I am glad that Bloodborne doesn't have that tombstone that Dark Souls 2 had that told me how many times I died. Because I was proud of my number in Dark Souls 2. 64. I was like, that's a decent number of times to die through an entire Souls game. Bloodborne, I feel like I've already died that much. I'm not even or I am halfway.
I probably have 200 deaths. I died a lot. Like, my stream has literally been watch Goggin die and maybe he'll be the boss.
Shit.
On stream.
Yeah, should we rank what we think is the hardest one of the 4, considering that's kind of the big thing with these games? Its difficulty.
Well, I mean, Ben, how would you rank it?
How would I rank Bloodborne?
Yeah.
Full your game time.
I think it's pretty easy, actually. I haven't died once in Bloodborne yet.
Oh, that's true. He hasn't. That was like you guys.
Yeah.
When you hadn't played Dark Souls 2, I was like, I've only died 3 times. You're like, you guys, you suck. I haven't died at all. I haven't even started.
Yeah, me and Troll Brian? Yeah.
So cool.
Ben was mostly... By the way, your internet behaved during this entire podcast.
And your cars behaved, Ben.
Yeah, what the fuck? Because, I would have been perfectly fine doing a podcast, me and Chris, because we have great chemistry and we would have been a good listen anyway, in my opinion. But the last time we tried to do this, he kept, getting dropped out, and it's oh, that's why we don't do this.
That's why we can't do this.
So, I had to bring Ben in, and, Ben's done the Demon Souls podcast with us when we had Goo for Yourself. Mm-hmm. And then, he did the Dark Souls podcast. He was part of the Dark Souls 2 podcast, which is Endless Broadcast, I think. So it's I guess he has to be on the Bloodborne podcast because it is what it is.
Or token Ben.
It feels weird to be on the outside.
It's so weird just because, you, I like pointing this out, you were the fucking original hipster who got everyone into these games because you imported the game. You had this, glowing fucking thread on when we had the GameSpot union.
I remember. Yeah, you hyped it.
And we were all like, yeah, but it looks so ugly. And then, it came out, and then, the rest is history. It won our Game of the Generation.
What can I say? But I'm right.
Yeah. And now, all of a sudden, Bloodborne's coming out, and it's wait, we're all playing this and Ben's not? And I think Moogle's the same way, right? I don't think Moogle got the game.
Look, as I said, that's what it means to be a hipster. I have to have already moved on because it's not popular.
You can't have a PS4. It's over. This game is going to sell 1 million copies. You can't have that.
Look, I'm glad you enjoy your game that I discovered years ago.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I
imported from Asia.
You're disgusting.
I've already moved on to Monster Hunter. That's the new hotness.
Which is also huge.
It's only huge in another country, though. So
okay, true. The second it gets huge over here, it's over.
Once it gets huge in the West, I can't like this game anymore. They modern warfared it too much, guys. They added, instructions to the game? What? I
mean, once you mentioned that you can, you could reverse your weapon upgrades and stuff, I was like, I'm out.
Yeah. That's too casual for him.
Too casual.
Kind of want to get the Monster Hunter in, but I feel like if we end the podcast now, this would be great.
Yeah, it's okay. I want to talk a bit about Hotline Miami 2, but...
I feel like, we're going to have to do a proper, let's talk about these other games, Type 0 and Monster Hunter and Hotline Miami.
Bloodborne gets its own podcast.
There's an achievement for dying 1,000 times in Hotline Miami 2, and I got that pretty quickly in that game.
Jesus.
You died 1,000 times? Yeah, you died super fast in that game, that's true.
You die super fast in Hotline Miami 2.
Yeah, I was about to say.
That game is hard.
Yeah, damn, really? Harder than 1?
I've heard it's harder than 1.
It, starts from the end of 1 in terms of difficulty. And then it gets hard.
Yeah, so do you think, in your opinion, it's better to just play them back to back, so you're acclimated to the difficulty already?
It's not a bad idea, actually.
So you're ready for it.
Yeah.
Not going cold.
You get right in instead of.
Chris, you're not that far into the game, so I don't know if this is a good time to ask you this. But I was gonna say, if you were ranking the Souls games,
all Souls games,
with Bloodborne included, because let's be real, Bloodborne is Demon Souls 4. It goes Demon Souls 2, Dark Souls, Demon Souls 3, Dark Souls 2, and Demon Souls 4, Bloodborne.
It's like Rambo. Yeah, it's First Blood Part 2, Rambo 3.
It's gonna be some Dark Forces Jedi Knight shit.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
I would say, because remember, I thought that Dark Souls 1 was better than Demon Souls. I was a heathen.
No, that's fine. I understand that argument. I understand it completely.
I would say Dark Souls. It's Demon Souls or Bloodborne next, then Dark Souls 2. I still love Dark Souls 2, but of the four, it's probably... it offers the least new things of the four. It's like excellence, but the other ones have that unique twist to the excellence.
Like they did something that you weren't expecting and like you had to adjust to it the whole game.
Yeah, like the only thing Dark Souls 2, it had my favorite Covenant, and my favorite boss battle in the series, but it doesn't, like, nothing else.
Pursuer?
Really. No, not the Pursuer. Fuck the Pursuer.
Oh, okay.
The Chariot fight. I love the Chariot fight.
Nice. Okay. Okay, yeah. I'd probably agree with you, Dark Souls 2 at 4. I definitely have Demon Souls at 1. So number 2 is hard for me because it's like, alright, so here's what it is. And I bet you're suffering the same issue. It's like...
Yeah.
I played that other game more because I played it multiple times. First of all, I played through Dark Souls like 3 or 4 times. And the other playthroughs had the benefit of me knowing having all this information at like my fingertips. Like you can just go search it. And then I got to play the game at a different level. Bloodborne, I haven't been able to play it at that level. So I can't realistically put it over Dark Souls just yet. But I could see it surpassing Dark Souls for me as number 2 in the series. If we're talking just initial playthroughs, though,
right,
I'd probably go Demon Souls, Dark Souls, and then Bloodborne. But they're excellent. Like all the first 3 games, I think are excellent. I think Dark Souls 2 is more just a really good game that has to be an entry in a franchise that has had excellent outings, so it feels disappointing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the standard has been sort of raised too high.
See, for all of the games, I played them on that opening, other than Demon Souls, I played them on that opening weekend. So I've always been stumbling through the dark with these games. And then months later, I found out that I missed so much or something.
Yeah.
So I should actually probably one day go back to all these games now that all the information's out there.
Yeah, if they would just put Demon Souls on PC, man, I would be ecstatic.
I feel like Demon Souls is actually what I missed the least of, because there probably just was not that much side content compared to the other 3.
Yeah.
I think I only missed 2 bosses in that whole game. Whereas, Bloodborne, I wouldn't be surprised if I missed 5 or 6 entire areas.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, that should do it, I think, for us, right?
Yep.
Like, Bloodborne's out, go buy it. Otherwise, March had some really awesome stuff that we didn't talk about, but...
Yeah.
Like, good job, video game industry. Thank you for making the new generation finally feel like it's worth it for anything other than, like, Nintendo making good games here and there, right? Because I
finally feel like I'm missing out for not owning PS4 or Xbox One.
For the first time, yeah.
I mean, whatever. Me and you, Ben, we've been spoiled by PC gaming. Like, if we weren't PC gaming, like, I still feel like these people had access to, like, Wolfenstein, which I think is good, Shadow of Mordor, Alien Isolation. Apparently Dying Light is good, but whatever. Yeah, so that'll do it for episode 50 of the Endless Backlog podcast, and I have no idea what we're going to do next, but hopefully the audio quality is better on the next podcast. Who knows? Maybe Callburner is actually better than Mumble, for all I know.
What are we doing after this podcast, boys? Bloodborne it is.
More Bloodborne, exactly. And Ben's
eating pizza.
Dude, you eat pizza so much!
That's all there is. Pizza is life.
I was gonna cook, but then he took me on this podcast. Now it's really late.
Oh, you're gonna blame me for this. Whatever. That'll do for episode 50. Please enjoy your night. Oh, wait, hold on. I just remembered something. Someone, commented on the last podcast. I don't know if they're real. Angels and Demons said that, hey, it'd be cool if you guys actually incorporated listener comments or a question of the week to engage listeners. So I said, fine, here it is. If you would like to send us a question on that you'd like us to answer on in this backlog, the email is Gagan, Gagan, May as in the month, May 31 at yahoo.com. And if you send us an email, I will gladly answer it on the next podcast or make you folks answer it on the podcast. Otherwise, please enjoy your night. We are out.
See ya.